the last story I reviewed was The Ice Warriors. And, let's say I thought it's a story that keeps going down, in my opinion. It's one that I had a pretty, not a very good rewatch with for the reviews. Didn't really enjoy it. Most of the positives weren't, there wasn't that many positives, I should say. And there was more negatives this time round, and I just didn't enjoy it. Despite some good stuff, like Patrick Troughton's performance and the two of the best animated episodes, not two of the best episodes that have been animated, two of the best animated, reanimated missing episodes. But not two of the best episodes, just two of the best animated reconstructions of missing episodes. But the good news is, with today's story, it's the complete opposite, minus the animated episodes, because this is a completely surviving story. Thank fuck. This story, I had a fantastic watch. It's a story that keeps going up, in my opinion, and unlike The Ice Warriors, which isn't very well received, this is a story that is super beloved by the fandom, especially since it was completely found nearly 6 years ago. Might even been 6 years ago, nearly 6 for when it was announced to the public. And that story is, of course, The Enemy of the World. So far superior to The Ice Warriors, with one common positive for both stories: Patrick Troughton's performance. I already gave my reasons for his performance in The Ice Warriors, but now it's time to see what he does even better in this story, along with everything else that's done even better in this story, besides any animated content due to being completely surviving. So, without further ado, The Enemy of the World. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of one of the best stories from the Patrick Troughton era, The Enemy of the World. This is a really, really great story. So makes up for what we had to endure in the last one. Okay, for starters, the story is great. David Whittaker is back. He did Evil the Daleks. And he's written a kind of a Bondy-esque spy thriller adventure, the Dr. Jamie and Victoria caught up in. Something that will have some blueprints on Jon Pertwee's Doctor. Not necessarily on his stories, but certainly on the Doctor. During the Jon Pertwee era, being a more Bondy-esque character with the martial arts and the gadgets. Not so much the killing people. Or the womanising, unless you want to count having his companions as his Doctor Bond girls. In a way, and the Brigadier is more of an equal rather than sort of a boss, but not in the same way as M. But in terms of the closest Doctor Who is getting to a Bond-style adventure, at least in terms of a spy thriller type of adventure, it would be this story. David Whittaker gives us a great adventure. We've already seen some Bondian elements in Doctor Who before, with the space security agents having a license to kill, and we'll have some more Bond references later down the line, like in the Lazarus Experiment. And of course, most of Jon Pertwee's Doctor's character taking inspiration from Bond himself, minus the killing people and the inappropriate for younger children elements. But as a story, this is a great. I suppose that's one reason why I like it. Another reason is because it's done so well. It is a good written story. And straight off the bat, we see our main characters. Not 6 minutes like the last story, when they were introduced 6 minutes into the story. No, straight off the bat, the main characters are doing stuff. First of all, they're just having fun on the beach. Well, the Doctor is anyway. To be honest, I would be satisfied with more of the Doctor playing on the beach. That in itself was a fun opening scene. But then, not too long afterwards, within the first 5 minutes, plot happens, stuff happens. Jeez, I cannot stress this enough. This is a 6-part story. But my goodness, for the first time this season, the 6-part stories feel justified. It feels like it needs to be 6 parts, or at least just more than 4. Not necessarily more than 6, but about 5 or 6 episodes. And I think it works at 6 parts, whilst the previous 2 stories could have been 5 or heck even 4 parts, maybe even shorter, if they removed quite a bit of stuff. Stuff takes place. I cannot stress this enough. The Enemy of the World has stuff happening. So it justifies being 6 parts, unlike the previous 2 stories. And maybe to an extent the next 3 as well. But yeah, it's got quite a bit of action, especially at the start and in the middle, I think. But it's also got plenty of twists and turns, and plenty of great characters. For starters, Patrick Troughton is outstanding as both the Doctor, and maybe even more so as Salamander, a Mexican man who predicts natural disasters and wants to become dictator of the world. For I don't know exactly what his motives are beyond becoming dictator of the world, but then again, in his spot, maybe just everyone just bowing down to him is good enough for him. To be fair, that sounds more reasonable than I want to destroy the world because I can. Professor Zaroff's motive. Yeah, whatever Salamander's motives for whatever he's doing, it's probably better than that. And the Ice Warriors one's from the last story, and the Great Intelligence one from the story before that. Jesus Christ, Salamander didn't really give his motive, and it's already better than those other ones. I suppose becoming dictator of the world because he wants to, it makes sense. I mean, makes more sense then. I want to blow up the world because I can! But what's even better is that the way he does it, I mean, if you want to say, criticise the motive, but fair enough, I did with the Underwater Menace, but if you want to do that, at least the way he's going about it is interesting, with the underground, with the people underground, causing these stuff. You didn't even notice until about part 4, halfway through at least, part 4 at least, and he's got these people down here making them believe that there's a nuclear war going on, and they try to cause natural disasters to try and stop that war, but Salamander's telling them a big fat fucking lie, and instead they're causing natural disasters for Salamander to predict that this will happen, so he gets them to do it, and then he tries to take over the zone or provide help to it. In the earlier case in this story, part 2, parts 1, 2, 3, Salamander predicts a volcano eruption in Central Europe around the Austria area, and the controller doesn't believe him, so then the disaster happens, people die, and Salamander blames the controller for not doing anything. So the controller is put on trial, and, he's going to be put on trial. An attempt to rescue him is made, but he is shot during this. I do have to say during this scene, there is a bit of a cut between Victoria throwing a trolley down the corridor and her and Jamie being captive. And this is in both the surviving episode version. This is part 3, so this is in the version that survived on Lost in Time, and it's also in the same. If they used the same one in this story, then maybe the other version didn't have it. But if it's the same in the version that they recovered with the other 5 episodes, then they did something. They cut a bit between the story. They made an awkward cut. This is speculation. I don't know. Maybe there was a bit of footage that was damaged or was cut by censors. But if it's from both copies of episode 3, then it probably is a original cut. That or there was reasons both had it removed for some reason. I'm not sure, but I'm certain it was an episode cut. It was edited. There was this awkward cut between that and the next bit, leading to the controller getting, he's been shot, but I guess he just dies, and Astrid escaping, but Victoria and Jamie getting captured. Yeah, that entire bit is missing, or has been removed. So I don't know whether that's because of it was cut slash damaged, that bit, and had to be removed, or if that was actually cut from the actual episode, or if they just didn't film that bit and they just jumped with that in the script. There's something similar happens in the invasion, except that we definitely did know that something was planned, but they didn't do it, and they just cut from one scene to the next. But I'll talk a bit about that next when I get to that story, if I remember. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, and that's one of the negatives of this story. They cut or don't include a scene or a couple of extra shots to smoothen this transition. That's one of my only problems. That's my only issue with part 3 as a executed story. I also have to say I'm not really a big fan of the guy coming in and smashing all the plates in that same episode. I can see why it was done for story purposes. I'm just not a fan of that scene personally. I do like the Doctor's line about how people make things and people come along and break them, and how Bennett is so cold. I really like Bennett's coldness in that scene. It's just that I don't really like the smashing up bits. Yeah, accident my bottom, Bennett. And speaking of Bennett, in part 6, he just grabs a gun and tries to run away, and then he's cornered, literally seconds later, and demands a trial. What was he doing, and why does he want a trial? What's going on? I'm not sure what is it? What's going on with Bennett? Is he just trying to run away before Salamander is caught by the good guys, but he's captured almost seconds later? Not even almost, literally a second or two later. I guess they just wanted to write Bennett out of the story, so they made him try to piss off, but he was caught before he could. So, yeah, he got arrested. I don't know what the reason behind that was. I'm sure he could have tried something else and still gotten caught or killed. It's a better way for his character to exit. But those are some of the few negatives I've got. They're not really ones that will harm the story. They're just some things I'm not so keen on, or just find what. But as for the positives, as I mentioned, the acting from Patrick Troughton, but everybody in this story gives a fantastic performance. I think Victoria has improved since the previous story for her few bits. Jamie's gotten even better again. This is probably his best moments since the Tomb of the Cybermen. We've got Astrid, who's also a pretty great character. Giles Kent is a great character, and a surprise twist villain at the end. Donald Bruce, the complete opposite. He's a great... Starts off as a bit of a prick / villain, but as the story goes along, he gets nicer and friendlier, and he becomes an ally at the end. Bennett is fantastic. He's a fantastic character, and the performance is so brilliant. I especially love the bit where he's pointing a gun at the servant girl Ferrara, and she's refusing to speak, but she can't die, despite him... Well, she can. She's going to die, so Bennett can't threaten her anymore. When Bennett is about to kill her, the guard next to him tells him she's dead, and he's like, good. What made it even better is if, like the Bond film License to Kill, Bennett would turn round and shoot the girl, even more so, just out of getting rid of some anger. Even though she's dead, he would just shoot her just because he's really angry and he wants to get rid of some bullets. That would have been really cool, but maybe that would have been too much for Doctor Who at the time. Also, License to Kill came 22 years later. 21 to 2 years later. Speaking of License to Kill, Salamander's personality is a bit like Fran Sanchez from that film. He's Colombian, though, Sanchez, whilst Salamander is Mexican, as I mentioned. So I forgot for a second. He prizes loyalty, and he only accepts one's chance, which brings me to the guy he tries to replace the Controller with. He tries to get him to kill the Controller, but ultimately that guy can't succeed, and Salamander poisons him, whilst the other Controller is, as I mentioned, killed during an escape. And he's a pretty good character of his scenes, and as is Ferrara. She's a great character and becomes a pretty good ally until she gets killed. Am I running? There's the people underground, the Swan, Colin, and Mary, most notably. Well, most notably, Slash are the ones who mainly get things to say and do. They're pretty good characters, and you can see where they're coming from all the perspectives, although Colin is a little bit whiny, but his point of view, you can understand why. And Swan does get killed by Salamander, but he's definitely Astrid to find the rest and rescue them, and eventually, well, with Colin and Mary's help, they capture Kent, and eventually they the rest are rescued, presumably. So that's pretty much the characters. There's also a couple of guards around. And they're all brilliant, and they're all acted well. This is probably the best acted story of the show to date. Even more so than Tomb of the Sidemen. That has some pretty great acting, but I think everyone in this story has some great acting. And I would also say after Tomb, this has the second best character lineup of every character. And everyone does something. Even the guy who gets poisoned gets a little bit to do before he gets poisoned. Even the guys at the start get some fun action scenes for the first 15 minutes for the story, just to do some really cool stuff. And it's just so great. And the sets are looking great. There is noticeably a bit of fakiness, but not too distracting. And we get some great location stuff, especially in the first episode, with that awesome action scenes, and also towards the end, and maybe in the cave, some really great stuff. And the last scene is really great, with the Salamander pretending to be the Doctor coming into the TARDIS, and then the Doctor confronting him back in his normal clothes, of course. And they have their fight in the TARDIS with help from Jamie, and they pull the controls, and Salamander falls out. I don't think I'm watching it the first two times. I think I've seen it 3 times, maybe more. But before this time round, I thought that scene was slightly edited a little oddly. A couple of odd cuts, possibly due to the whole episode not quite being there. But on rewatching this it for the review, I didn't notice it that time. So maybe it wasn't that bad, or it's certainly not as much as that bit in part 3 that's missing. Slash not there anyway. But beforehand I thought maybe when recovering part 6 there was some bits cut, or bits that were damaged that can be featured with the final fight and Salamander falling out. But on recent rewatching, it's fine. Maybe it's the special edition, but I watched the special edition once before and I thought I noticed it there anyway. Maybe it was always on the original cut, I'm not sure. And then they released the special edition with a restored version. Either way, I think I just noticed it the earlier times, but not this time round. But if there was something, then just throwing that out there. But other than potentially that, it's still a great scene. Just if you do notice some of the odd cuts, that's the only thing I would have an issue with in the final scene. So the Enemy of the World is just absolutely fantastic. I've got a few nitpicks and problems there and now, but for the majority of the story, I had a great time. I had a really enjoyable enjoyed the story a lot. I thought everyone was great as their respective characters. I thought we possibly had the best character lineup, or one of them at least, with one of the best casts. And I think overall, the production just threw their all into this story. Makes up for the last time where they didn't really put, at least story-wise anyway, didn't put their all into it. It's just so perfect. And the cherry on top is Patrick Troughton as both the Second Doctor, and even more so as Salamander. He's outstanding as both. And especially Salamander. He's so great. If Patrick Troughton wasn't the Second Doctor, he'd still be perfect for a villain. And I don't think I could imagine anyone else but Troughton being Salamander, with the Abbot in Massacre, because like that, the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, this story features the actor playing the Doctor playing 2 characters, albeit in that other story we didn't see the first Doctor that's around the same time as the Abbot, whilst here we saw the second Doctor a couple of times around the same times as Salamander, including a face-to-face meeting at the end. How did they achieve that in 1967-68 I'm not sure about. I mean, I know they were able to do that in 2008, for example. But 1967-68, it's wow, that's really good editing. There, for all the editing issues I had, well, 2 in that scene and at another scene earlier, it's more than made up for that. That's really great. And yeah, it just looks absolutely beautiful and just magnificent story. This is easily one of the best stories so far in the series, especially from Patrick Troughton's era. I mean, at this point in time, it's the second best. I think there's going to be one story that might be better than this story. That isn't Tomb of the Cybermen. So this one might go down to being third overall, but in terms of this point of the show, it's the second best Troughton, and one of the best of the entire show. Maybe third best after Tomb and Master Plan. Yes, I think, yes, at this point in time, it's my third favourite Doctor Who story since An Earthly Child to this point, out of all 40 stories. At this point in time, this is number 3, and it will be number 3 of the second Doctor overall when we get to the end of this tenure, but at this point it's number 2, and also number 2 of the season. So, it's just absolutely outstanding. I only have a few problems with it, and a few nitpicks elsewhere, but despite that, I'm going to give this story a well-deserved 10 out of 10. Previously a 9, but I raised it after my previous viewing. In fact, maybe even during the previous viewing. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. Really liked it. I can see why some people love it. I don't love it as much as them, but I do think it is a fantastic story, and it definitely deserves that 10 out of 10 rating. So, yeah. Masterpiece. Very much a masterpiece. Thank goodness it's all back in its entirety. Since 2013, when it was discovered, it's been getting a hell of a lot of positive reviews, and this is just another one. This is just another positive review for this really great story, and let's be honest, how is this not a bad story? Sorry, this is not a good story. How is this not a good story? How is it a bad story? I've only had a few problems, as I mentioned, but I still think it deserves that 10 out of 10 score. Anyway, so that's The Enemy of the World, and it was discovered alongside every episode of another almost completely missing story, The Web of Fear. However, this story is now still completely missing due to an episode apparently being stolen. Fuck! So that episode 3, is been reconstructed for this release. Hopefully it's better than the fucking Underwater Menace. It's by the same person, but it was done before, so hopefully it's better. Hopefully it doesn't have those curved pictures, and it has plot details, and hopefully it's more pictures than one. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go back and watch Loose Cannon's one as well to see if that helps. The sooner this one gets the missing episode is found, or it gets reanimated and released on a special edition release like Enemy of the World, the fucking better. But until then, we've got to put up with this original release, which is missing an episode. I blame the person who stole it, or the people sold it off to someone else. All 12 episodes from both stories were found, with Web of Fears Part 1 and Enemy Part 3, seen in Lost in Time's box set, alongside them. But Web of Fear Part 3 just didn't come back. Someone took it or was given it by Nigeria, or it was stolen from Nigeria, the TV centre, as opposed to being returned given to the guy who was looking for the missing episodes and who would return them to the BBC, and later do the reconstruction for Web Part 3 and Underwater Menace 1 and 4. Suffice to say, I don't think we should have to do another one after Underwater Menace. So, anyway, but that's it from the Enemy of the World. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time for the Web of Fear. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Well, last time hang on, I'm going to start this again. My nose is getting itchy now. What is wrong with your nose? For a more detailed plot, please go watch Matthew Moyer's his review on the Hooniverse. Oh no, that's been taken down. Oh, that's a shame. That was one of his best ones. Fuck.